رمضان أقبل بعد طول غيابي ففرحت فيه مهنئا أحبابي خير الشهور به النفوس تعلقت واستسلمت للخالق الوهاب.
Assalamalaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and welcome to Ramadan Recital Reminder 20. And if you look at the makeup of the phrase that I use when I introduce these lectures to you, Ramadan Recital Reminder. And its key there is, obviously Ramadan is obvious, recital because Al-Qur'an is the recital, that's what it means, something which is recited. And reminder is absolutely essential. Because we'll hear events and we'll hear stories and we'll hear information and we will be things will be explained to us from many different angles. Possibly the same story, possibly the same event, but what they're coming, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing to them from different angles, talking about different topics associated with those events, but also because we need a regular reminder, and that's what this is about, is this regular reminder. So when we do discuss things, because now that Alhamdulillah we've completed 19 2/3 of the Quran, so we've completed the majority in that respect. So we're going to get some events, particularly in the next 5-6 paras, where we have touched upon them sometimes in great detail before, and you might ask the question, well, hold on, we've been through this before, why is this coming again? Bear that in mind. It's a case of bringing something else to the table. It's a case of coming at the narrative, coming at the story from another angle, and it's a case of reminding, continuously reminding, because we are, like I've mentioned to you before, supposed to be reciting a para a day. Now, if we're reciting a para a day, then there's certain things which we take from there. So it might be, for example, even though I know that Musa alayhi salam's story will come again in this para, we may have covered Musa alayhi salam's story, 5-6 paras earlier. And that's been 5-6 days later. And there's something else we can take from Musa alayhi salam's story, 5-6 days down the road. So it's very important because this is a daily occurrence that we're doing. It's impacting daily on our lives because our lives, certain things come in front of us and we have to deal with them. So let's start, and inshallah we'll touch upon those sorts of things that I just spoke about. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن خلق السماوات والأرض وأنزل لكم من السماء ماء فأنبتنا به حدائق ذات بهجة ما كان لكم أن تنبتوا شجرها. Amman, who is that being that created the skies and the earth and then sent down from the skies rainwater and then used this rainwater to be a means to give growth to gardens which were beautiful and delightful? I don't know if you're a sort of a park walking person or a garden walking person, but the rare time that I have ever had an opportunity, isn't it so pleasant walking through a park or a nice garden, particularly late spring, early summer, and you see, the smells, the heat, the sounds. It's just remarkable and so tranquil as well. And you don't have the ability even to bring about a tree to grow. You don't have that kind of capacity. And you look at the world and you look at the phenomenal rainforests across the globe, and the size of these rainforests is huge. There's acres and acres of land being cut virtually every day, if not every few hours. And when you think about it, that's like hundreds of trees being cut down, and that's been going on for like 5-10 years. So you think, wow, that place must be absolutely humongous. Ilahum ma'allah, is there another God with Allah? Bal hum qawmun ya'dilun, rather there are people who try to equate other beings and other things and their desires with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amman ja'ala al-arda qararan wa ja'ala khilalaha anhara wa ja'ala laha rawasiya wa ja'ala bayna al-bahrayni hajiza. And that being who is that being that has made the earth as a fixed abode, something that's, can you imagine if the earth was, it wouldn't be called earth, well really it should be called ocean, shouldn't it? Because the earth is 2/3 ocean and 1/3 earth, or approximately that. And we still call it earth because, I guess we call it earth because we look at it from the perspective which benefits us, which is the earth. But anyway, earth is perfect. It's hard. We can build upon there. It's not too hard where we can't dig it. It's ideal. Can you imagine if the earth? I know I'm using the word earth, but can you imagine? Let's use the word ground. Can you imagine if the ground was iron? And what could you build on there? Nothing. Can you imagine if the ground was just water? You couldn't build anything on there. Can you imagine if it was mud? You couldn't build anything on there. It had to have, the majority of the earth has to be this. So I appreciate now we've developed our technology, so we can now drain earth, and we can take away the boggy earth, and earth which has lots of water in it, we can drain it away and make it more solid. But in the old days, in days gone by when that wasn't possible, it would have been virtually impossible to find a place to live. But Allah SWT has given us the opportunity to live, and He has placed in between it rivers, and He has made for it paths, mountains, and He has made in between the two types of seas a barrier. Ilahum Allah, is there a deity with Allah? And we see this, and we'll see again soon, a hypothetical statement followed by another hypothetical statement. So Allah SWT makes a hypothetical statement, and He says, أَمَّنْ جَعَلَ الْأَرْضَ قَرَارٌ وَجَعَلَ خِلَالَهَا أَنْهَارٌ وَجَعَلَ لَهَا رَوَاسِيَ وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ حَاجِزًا. He asked the question hypothetically, who is that being that has made the earth as a fixed abode, and He has made between it rivers to flow, and He has made for it mountains, and He has made between the two types of waters and the two types of seas a barrier? Is there a God with Allah? بَلْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And then He says it again, أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ. And who is that being that responds to the distressed individual إِذَا دَعَاهُ, when he calls him, وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ, and He removes the harm, وَيَجْعَلُكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ, and He takes you upon, and He place you rather as and He's made you as the vice regents on the earth. أَإِلَهُ مَعَ اللَّهِ, is there a God with Allah? Vice regents, what does the vice regents mean? It means we have a huge responsibility on these shoulders. We know already that we're responsible for, depending on our capacity, whether it's our children, whether it's our wives, society, students, whatever. So we know we're responsible for humans, but we also have a responsibility for the earth. And this is why, Islam is a holistic religion, because it covers everything. So we should care for what happens to the oceans. So when we see, plastic being thrown into the oceans, the Muslims should be the first ones who should be calling out. But sadly, we are so far away from where we should be. We really, as Muslims, should be leaders on all fronts when it comes to humanitarian and issues of damage to our earth. First, but we're not, because we've broken connection with the Qur'an. We're so busy labeling one another, we're so busy fighting one another, we're so busy disputing with one another, we've lost the whole point of our purpose. So now we see poor animals dying in oceans, we see earth, we see the trees being cut down. We should have been the first ones to say, hold on, let's do something about this, let's try to make a stop to this. And it's not about money, it's about raising awareness, it's about pushing politicians. And this is really our area, because we're responsible for this earth, and we're going to be, animals should not be becoming extinct during our time at all. Why should they? And if people say, well, yeah, animals have been created for us, absolutely they have been, but not to wipe them out. Not to wipe them out. Trees have been created for our purpose, yes, absolutely, but not to wipe them out. The ocean has been created for our purpose, absolutely, but not to destroy the life which exists within the ocean, not to destroy the habitat. That's not there. We should be using it in such a way that we're replacing at the same time. Of course, we have to use certain things which are combustible, or we use certain things which we can use up and they're gone, but we should be replenishing resources. We should be then returning and thinking, how can we replace what we're destroying? Because otherwise it will be gone eventually. So this is our responsibility. Again, Allah says, "Ilahum Allah, is there a deity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Qalilan ma tadhakkarun." Very few or very little is it that you reflect and ponder over. And that's sadly our state, is that very little do we reflect and ponder over. أَمَّن يَهْدِيكُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وَمَن يُرْسِلُ الرِّيَاحَ بُشْرًا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَحْمَتِهِ أَإِلَهُمَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى اللَّهُ عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. And who is that being that guides you in the darknesses of the land and the sea, and who sends winds as glad tidings for you, followed by His mercy, meaning His rain? Is there a God with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above and pure from what you ascribe to, from what they ascribe to Him. أَمَّنْ يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ وَمَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And who is that being that initiates the creation and then repeats it and then gives sustenance to whoever is in the heavens or from the heavens and the earth? أَإِلَهُمْ Allah. Is there a deity other than Allah? قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And bring your evidence if you claim to be truthful. So again we see another remarkable nature of the Qur'an. We've seen already the rational arguments. We've seen already the kind of scientific evidence. We've seen already the historical evidence. We've seen already the information of things which were happening at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. We see so many different styles in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is utilizing in order to engage with mankind. To say that, so for all types of learners, and for those of us who are educationalists, for those of us in the education sector, we'll know this well, this differentiation approach. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes this differentiation approach. He has a very different approach for all types of learners and all types of people. But also, not only is it for all types of learners and all types of people, but even his message, when it's addressed in a particular way, is generalized, so it makes it easy for all to understand. But this is hypothetical question, followed by hypothetical question, and there's a repetition of A'ilahumma Allah, A'ilahumma Allah, A'ilahumma Allah, and then so you got statement hypothetically put, and then statement hypothetically put, which is being repeated, statement hypothetically put, repetition of the statement, and then a statement put, and then another repetition, and then finally to kind of close this argument, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then suddenly says, Hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin. So you're expecting this hypothetical question followed by this hypothetical, is there another God? Hypothetical question followed by hypothetical, is there another God? And you kind of got into this rhythm and you expect it. And suddenly, he demands from you proof and evidence that there is another God. And that kind of, so is the style of argumentation. This again is a mu'jiza. It's a miraculous approach. It's a rare skill which can be used by an orator, by a speaker. In this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using to address everybody's concerns in various styles. قُلْ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الْغَيْبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Say, I do not know anybody in the heavens or the earth on the unseen except the unseen of the earth except Allah. Except Allah. So again, it's a profound argumentation. Incredible argumentation, different style of argumentation. لَقَدْ وَإِذْنَا هَذَا نَحْنُ وَآبَاؤُنَا مِنْ قَبْلِ. So when the argument was put to them, let me just take a verse back. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. And those who did not accept the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who did not accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence, they said, أَإِذَا كُنَّا تُرَابُ وَآبَاؤُنَا أَإِنَّا لَمُخْرَجُونَ. That when we become dust and we're broken down and now we're an organic species and we turn into dust and nothing exists of us, and obviously our forefathers, are we all going to be then taken out from the earth and resurrected? لَقَدْ وَإِذْنَا هَذَا نَحْنُ وَآبَاؤُنَا مِنْ قَبْلِ. And indeed we were promised this, us guys and our forefathers from before. إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. These are not but fables, stories, tales of the past. Now this is being mentioned 1400 years ago, and I mentioned to you that really are the so-called new atheists, new atheism, a new thing? Have we progressed intellectually to such a point where we now have no need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is that the point that we've reached, that rationally our brain has become so powerful, our knowledge, our shared knowledge as a global human community has reached to such a level that we don't need to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore, that we can now solve things? We don't need to believe that a God sends down rain. We can work that out now. We don't need to believe that there's such a thing as predestination because we can work out coincidences and probability. We could do all these things now using maths and science and everything else that goes with this kind of technological and rational and intelligent and observation and hypothesis type of approach. We can do this now. We have no need for Allah. So have we kind of peaked, have we been, and we're then told about this concept of evolution. So are we really, have our minds evolved to such a point that we were at a stage when our minds needed the existence of a deity, it needed the existence of a God, and as a result now that we've advanced so much that we have no need for God? Have we made God defunct? Is this a new argument? Is it really? Did you not hear the verses here? And وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَإِذَا كُنَّا تُرَابًا وَآبَاؤُنَا, that when we become turab, that when we become dust, and our fathers, will we then be taken back out? لَقَدْ وُعِدْنَا هَذَا نَحْنُ وَآبَاؤُنَا مِنْ قَبْلِ إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. This is not but fables. And that's exactly now what these new atheists will say. These are just tales. Oral tradition. Mothers said to keep their children scared so they'd go to sleep. Men said to keep other people in check so they could have power. These are all worldly reasons, tales, nothing else more than that. They're just fables. But it's just that people believe in them, like Aesop's fables and whatever else the Grimm brothers put together. All these things are just made up tales that have no reality, no truth to them. And we've made them defunct by explaining them away. And likewise, we've explained God away. It's not a new phenomenon. It's the same thing, cyclical, going on again and again and again. Again, it's the argument and the debate against those people who believe in the existence of Allah and those people who deny the existence of Allah. قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. Travel upon the earth and see what the end result was of the sinners. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَيْهِمْ. And don't feel sorry for them. وَلَا تَكُنْ فِي ضَيْقٍ مِّمَّا يَمْكُرُونَ. And don't feel constricted and frightened or perturbed in any way when they plot. وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And they will say, when is this promise if they speak the truth? قُلْ أَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونَ رَضِفَ لَكُمْ بَعْضُ الَّذِي تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. It could be that is almost immediately behind you, right there, that which you want to bring on. وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. And indeed your Rabb is the possessor of great bounty over people. However, the majority of the people, they don't have no shukr. They're not grateful. There's no gratitude in them. And when Allah SWT describes these people, He mentions to them and He draws analogy and compares them to a normal person, to a person that that you're aware of. He says, "Innaka la tusmi'u al-mauta." You can't make the dead hear. "Wala tusmi'u summa." And you can't make the deaf hear. Couldn't get the word out there. Ad-du'a, the call, the supplication, إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدْبِرِينَ, when they turn around. So for instance, for those of us who are hard of hearing, and you're speaking to the person face to face, and obviously now people can lip read, they can work out sign languages, but if the person turned and walked off, and let's just say they don't have a hearing aid or anything, and they talked off, you can call on that person continuously, "Oh, I haven't finished yet, you want to just come back?" But if that person doesn't turn round to see your lips moving or your hands moving, then the person will be none the wiser that you're speaking. So the analogy that Allah is trying to give is in the same way that when you're talking to these people and you're calling and inviting them to Islam, or those of us who are da'is and we're calling people to practice Islam, and even though we're looking at them, then they will struggle to take on board what's being said. And that's not because they don't have ears, that's not because they don't have intellect to be able to comprehend what you're saying, that's because Allah SWT is placing seals on them. He's sealing their hearts, He's veiling their eyes, He's putting heavy burden in their ears so they can't understand the message. And I don't mean understand the message intellectually, understand the message spiritually. That's what they can't understand, is understanding it spiritually. And that's what mentions this, that this is the way the situation is, and that's because of it. It's His choosing. This is Allah's choosing, it's His will. وَيَوْمَ نَحْشُرُ مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فَوْجًا مِمَّنْ يُكَذِّبُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ. And then the day when we will gather from every nation a large group of them, from those who denied our verses, denied our signs, denied our messengers, فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ. And then they will be driven. حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءُوا قَالَ أَكَذَّبْتُمْ بِآيَاتِي وَلَمْ تُحِيطُوا بِهَا عِلْمًا أَمَّا ذَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. Until when they come, and he will say, "Did you deny my verses? وَلَمْ تُحِيطُوا بِهَا عِلْمًا." And you had no knowledge of them whatsoever. أَمَّا ذَا كُنْتُمْ. Or what else was it that you were doing? وَوَقَعَ الْقَوْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمَا ظَلَمُوا فَهُمْ لَا يَنْطِقُونَ. And when the statement is mentioned to them that they are oppressed, they will not be able to speak. وَيَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي السُّورِ فَفَزِعَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ. And when they blow inside the bugle, then he will be terrified, that which is in the heavens and that which is in the earth, except whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. وَكُلٌّ أَتَوْهُ دَاخِرِينَ. And every single one will come to him presenting himself humbled. Even those who walk with haughtiness, even those who walk with arrogance, they will come humbled, accepting their fate after their initial denial of it, accepting their fate, realizing there's no escape. So the believers will be successful, but believers have to remain patient. Believers must put their trust in Allah. Believers must believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. وَتَرَى الْجِبَالَ تَحْسَبُهَا جَامِدَةً وَهِيَ تَمُرُّ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. And you will see the mountains, and you will think that, that the mountains of old, firm, strong, rooted to the ground, but you'll see them passing like clouds. Sun Allah alladhi atqana. This is the doing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is perfected over everything. Innahu khabirun bima taf'alun. And he is all aware, all knowledgeable regarding what you're doing. Man ja'a bil hasanati falahu khairu minha. That person who comes with a good deed. And it's interesting how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala phrases this. Man ja'a bil hasanat. That person who comes on the day of judgment with a good deed. So you think, what does this mean? Well, Alhamdulillah, we're sat here. We're sat here and we're trying to do good deeds. We've made the niyyah. That was the first thing we needed to, was make niyyah. Because without niyyah, good deed is not rewarded. So we make niyyah. We say, Ya Allah, I'm going to study this Qur'an. I'm going to listen to this Qur'an. One is that I'm going to recite it. And one is that I'm going to try to understand it. And one is that I'm going to try to practice it in my day-to-day life. That was our niyyah. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I would like you to reward me for that. Expecting reward. So we have to expect reward. And that's how we make our niyyah. And we try to do with ikhlas. I appreciate, this is on a video and it's going out to the public. So it's not very much hidden in my circumstances. With your situation, you could be with more ikhlas in your situation, because nobody knows you're viewing this. Nobody will know unless you obviously discuss it with people. But I pray that I'm doing this with ikhlas. Allahu A'lam. I pray I'm doing this with ikhlas. It's a demand that's been placed upon me about giving the Quran in a language which people can relate to, which people can understand, which people can connect with, and that's really the purpose of the Quran, and that's what I'm trying to do as much as my the skills that I have, to the best of my ability. So sincerity has to be there. And when sincerity is there, then once we've done this, we should really forget about it. Okay, once Alhamdulillah Ramadan is over, we shouldn't sit after Ramadan and talk to people and say, oh well, in Ramadan I did, what did I do? I finished 15 khatams, okay, and I did, that dars online, and I listened to that, the scholar, the Mufti, on the thing that he had, what was it, Ramadan Recital reminders. I listened to that, I made some notes, I've done this, and we start counting them off. Now, what's the reason why we're counting them off? What's our purpose here? Now, if we're doing that with the intention that we're showing off, or whatever other reason, let me give you a story. In fact, let me give you a story. Remind me not to forget about the story about the guy who's climbing at the top of the tree. I need to tell you that story as well sometime. But let me tell you this story first. So there was a chap, and when he would give donations, he wouldn't give donations openly. He would give donations pretty secretly. So whenever the box was there, the paying in box, he would place the money inside it and walk off. Once there was some renovation work that was due, so the president stands up and he says, look, my dear brothers, we've got an urgent need in the wuzu khana. As you can see, the water's blocking. We need to dig it up, put new drains in. We need a new wuzu khana. We've had the same one for now 20 years. New tiles. We need to bring it up to standard. Work to be done. Okay, so we need £50,000 or something, or whatever, £20,000. Can you please donate? And people, I'll give 100. Another brother says, I'll give 200. I'll give 300. I'll give 400. Everybody's putting his hand up, apart from this chap. He doesn't put his hand up. So what he does secretly is he goes home, gets £5,000 now. Obviously, make sure his wife doesn't see him. Gets £5,000 now, puts it in an envelope, and when he arrives the next day in Salah, he just slots it into the money drop place, and he wanders off. So a couple of days later, pals sat together, a bit gupshup. They've had their pizzas, and now they're drinking their J2Os. And you just start talking, when people sit together, eventually first, for a few minutes you talk sense, and then it's just rubbish, isn't it? Either someone is taking the mick out somebody, or we're doing somebody's ghibat, whatever. That's why these gatherings are of no use whatsoever, unless we're going to do something productive, or it's a meeting or something like that. Otherwise, it tends to go pear-shaped pretty quickly. Khair, this conversation is going on, and then suddenly they start saying, see that work that needs to be done in the masjid? Yeah, very important work, I gave a couple £100, yeah, I noticed that, yeah. Brother, the one who's put the £5 in the envelope, why don't you ever donate? Yeah, it's true, man, you never donate. And he's just quiet. Yeah, why are you so tight-fisted for? Allah will reward you, man. Just give some money. Everybody gave some money. Everybody put their hand up. You were there looking down. You're not scared from your missus, are you? That, she might have a go at you for not giving. And, his temper's building. Ego's stepping in now. Ego's come in, because, first of all, this is the danger of anger. Once a person goes angry, his ego comes in. Because anger is one of those things where you lost control. And shaitan wants you to get angry. Why? Because you won't think straight. How many men have given divorces to their wives because they've been in a state of anger? Why? Because you don't think straight anymore. And your ego comes in. So you want to prove a point. You want to prove you're the man, or you prove the hero. Anyway, I'm digressing now into a story from a story to another story. So let me just go back to the Jannah story. So he's getting angry. No, these guys, man. They know I gave £5. These guys give £100, £200, £300. I give £5. He's fuming, temper's boiling, but he's not saying anything. He's not going to bite. Honestly, man, at least a £5, a £10. What do you think, man? This guy is proper tight. What do you like? Are you tight with your kids as well? And he snaps. He snaps. What are you lot on about? I gave £5,000. I'll have you know, £5,000. Let's press pause there. No, you don't press pause, because you won't know what I'm saying if you press pause. You'll just see me going like this. So don't do that. You carry on. Let's press pause on the story. So let's press pause there. Up until that time, the brother had made intention to give £5,000 to the masjid in order to build the wuzu khana, with the expectation of reward. That £5,000 worth of ajr was kept for him on the day of judgment, so he would go there. So big pile of good deeds. Okay, big pile of ajr. Big pile, £5,000 Jannah. Boom, immediately, in good intention, ikhlas, sincerity, everything was there. So it became a valid transaction. Boom, £5 went there. Boom. Massive pile of ajr. Huge mountain of ajr. Huge. That's going to be his. That was there for the next week, the next whatever. The day he sat with his pals. And he started now talking. And whilst he is talking, his temper is going. His intention now changes. His intention is that you know what? I'm going to prove to these guys. Now that £5 is a proof to these guys to win this argument that I give money for good deeds, for good causes. Not for the sake of Allah anymore, because he's now doing shirk. Okay? When you do a task solely for Allah, then that's not shirk. But when you do a task which involves somebody else, then Allah SWT wants no share of it, and it goes to that person, so you get no ajr for it. Now he's bringing into this £5. Not only does he want ajr from Allah SWT on the day of judgment, but he also wants to shut people up that I donate. So he makes that statement. Boom, poof, it vanished. His good deeds disappeared. Or a person does good deeds, big pile, and then does lots of bad deeds. Goes back down. Okay. So what a person must do is do good deeds and then forget about them. As soon as you forget about it, you can't remind people of them. You don't get kind of confident that, you know what, I don't need to worry about, I don't really need to worry about doing good deeds because, whoa, I'm a fantastic chap. I'm a fantastic chapess. I do lots of good things, I think I'm going to be cool. Everything's going to be all right for me. I'm going to go straight into Jannah. No problems whatsoever. Wrong. As soon as you start thinking like that, then that's a person stops acting. You think you've done it. You think you're already there when you're not there. It's like being in the 80th minute. Sorry for giving these football analogies, but it's like being in the 80th minute and you're 3-0 up. You think, we've won this. It's a done deal. Or first leg, let's give another scenario. First leg at the away team's stadium, you're 3-0 up after the first leg. So second leg, you think, we're playing at home, we're 3-0 up. Chalo yaar, maze kar, relax. Guess what happens? Boom, 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 they score 4. You lose. Same here, we're not there yet. We are not there yet. So we have to carry on. We have to carry on until we reach there. And we have to forget the good deeds that we do, because that doesn't benefit us at all. One is it stops us doing good deeds because we think we've got lots of good deeds, or we think we have. Secondly, we could accidentally give make niyyah with, so this, use that good deed for another worldly purpose, to shut people up, to show we're generous, blah, whatever. So it can disappear again. So forget about the deeds. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Man jaa bil hasanati falahu khairu minha. He'll get better than that. And so we reach to the end of the surah. وَقُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ سَيُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِهِ فَتَعْرِفُونَهَا وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. Say, Alhamdulillah, all praises for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Soon He will show you His verses and you will recognize them, and your Rabb is not unaware regarding what you do. So next we go on to Surah Al-Qasas. And Surah Al-Qasas starts very early about Fir'aun, and obviously his relationship with Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. If we look at the 4th verse, that's where it starts. Inna fir'auna ala fil ardi wa ja'ala ahlaha shi'an yastad'ifu ta'ifatan minhum yudhabbihu abna'ahum wa yastahyi nisa'ahum. Now Fir'aun, what he did was he was very haughty and arrogant upon the earth, and he made his people into separate groups. He graded them. Okay, he graded them, and some he would consider weak, and from them he would slaughter their sons and he would let live their daughters. Innahu kana min al-mufsidin. He was a very corrupt man, because nobody has the ability to grade people. There's no grading of society. We are all equal. Okay, we are all equal. Our skin color does not benefit us whatsoever. Our gender does not benefit us whatsoever. Our race does not benefit whatsoever. Our creed, religion does, yes, because that's in the recognition of Allah. So that's the only deciding factor. And then obviously our grade within the religion is not based upon our nationality, ethnicity, language, whatever. It's how much taqwa we have. That's what it's based upon. So this is what he did. This is what Fir'aun did. And we know that Fir'aun well. And he would have his Haman with him and their armies. And they would, put terror into the hearts of people. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِئِيهِ. Now we see the story of Musa alayhi salam, which I did share with you when Musa alayhi salam's story came, but I mentioned it without recitation. Now we have the recitation part, which mentions that we inspired the mother of Musa alayhi salam, that suckle your child. فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ. When you fear him, because what happened was with Fir'aun obviously had called his soothsayer, and his soothsayer grabbed some bones and bits and pieces or whatever else and kind of threw it on the ground and looked at it and said, because they had access to the jinnat who would go and steal knowledge from the heavens and then bring it down to them. And I want to see, because this was probably all just jiggery pokery just to make Fir'aun think that he was doing something, and really all he had was a jinn sort of whispering to him that, look, there's a boy that's going to be born, and this boy that's going to be born is going to be born in the Bani Israel, and what he will do is he will bring your ultimate destruction. Not only will he kill you, but he will actually destroy your existence, your whole kingdom, your people, your whole culture. Everything will disappear. That's how powerful this young man's going to be. So when he heard this, he was obviously deeply frightened. And when people, instead of sort of accepting their fate, arrogant people always think that, I can change this, I'll find this chap and I'll kill him. So because he didn't know who he would be, he said, well, we're going to just kill every single boy, no skin off my nose, let's just kill everyone. So obviously Musa alayhi salam's mother had a boy, Musa alayhi salam, and she feared for his life. And she didn't know what to do. And sooner or later someone's going to find out news, because there were spies everywhere, that they're going to go tell the soldiers of Fir'aun that, guess what, in this house a son has been born. They're going to soon be breaking the door down, they're going to be looking for him. As soon as they find him, they'll take him out to the street and slaughter him. So she was inspired to provide milk to him, and she did that. And she was then told, فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ. If you're frightened that the soldier's going to come in any moment, فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. Then place him in the river Nile. Okay? But obviously place him within a basket, which then eventually got the name of Moses' basket because of this scenario. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. First, don't fear and don't grieve. Fear is something which is immediate. Fear is something you feel instantaneously and it stays with you for a while and usually disappears. Grieving is what you do when you're carrying on over a long period of time. Fear, imminent danger. Grieving is when the danger has passed, but you miss this, whatever's happened to you, what you feared, now you're grieving over. So immediate fear, fearing that the door's going to get barged open, Musa alayhi salam is going to be taken from her and killed. Or in this case, because she's placed him in the water, she doesn't know what's going to happen. Maybe the basket tips over, poor Musa alayhi salam drowns. I don't know, gets stuck in some rocks. A huge bird sees him, flies down, picks him up, disappears, ends up getting near the bank, and there's a bear there or something. And a mother is a mother at the end of the day. It's easy for us chaps to sort of talk about having fear over our children, but the way a mother feels and how she's connected to her children is very different. Just because the umbilical cord breaks, the link that exists between a mother and her children is still physical as well as spiritual. And whereas a father never has that physical link to his children, illa Masha Allah. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي إِنَّ رَادُوهُ Indeed, he will be returned ilayki, to you. Okay? وَجَائِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Not only that, he'll be made from the messenger. So here we are. Look at this scenario. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam's mother, fearing for her child's life, fearing for her own life, arguably, because she's hidden this birth and she's hidden the child. And they're not really scared at taking another life if they so be it. So here she is, a moment of despair, a moment of sadness, a moment of oh goodness, what's going to happen to my child, to hearing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through inspiration that not only is this child going to come back to her, Ajib, she's put the child in the river to go. Not only is this child going to come back to her, but he's also going to be a messenger. Allahu Akbar Kabir. This is belief. She believed that. She put trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَالْتَقَتَهُ آلُ فِرْعَوْنَ. So the people of Fir'aun picked him up. لِيَكُونَ لَهُمْ عَدُوٌ وَحَزَنًا. So that he will be for them eventually an enemy and bring grief to them. إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا كَانُوا خَاطِئِينَ. They were bad people. وَقَالَتِ امْرَأُ فِرْعَوْنَ. And Fir'aun's wife said to him, قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ لِي وَلَكَ. He could be the coolness of our eyes, the child that we've been wanting. لَا تَقْتُلُوهُ. Don't kill him. It could be that he can benefit us, or we could take him as a son. Very similar to what was said to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam when he was brought to the minister's house. وَأَصْبَحَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا. And in the morning, then the heart of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was empty. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam's mother was empty. إن كادت لا تبدي به لولا أن أربطنا على قلبها لتكون من المؤمنين وقالت لأخته. So she said to his sister, go see him, follow him hidden along the bank, see where he goes. فبصرت به عن جنوب وهم لا يشعرون وحرمنا عليه المراضع من قبله. And all women who came, because obviously this was a baby, Pharaoh's wife didn't have a baby, so she couldn't provide milk to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. So they now had a problem. And obviously being a queen, that's not the kind of thing that she would have done anyway. She would have had wet nurses and people to do that for her. So what they did was they held auditions, if I could use that word, for people to come in and provide their milk to the baby. But the baby refused all of them. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says he made haram upon him. He wouldn't consume it. So once this was going on and this news was spreading and this Ajib baby, days have gone by, is not drinking, could die. Already this, Pharaoh's wife is feeling sad. At that point, Musa alayhi salam's sister steps forward and she says, هَلْ أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتٍ. Can I not tell you about a particular family, يَكْفُلُونَهُ لَكُمْ وَهُمْ لَهُ نَاصِحُونَ, that they will take care of him for you and they will be good advisors. And it's a woman whose milk has not been turned down by any child whatsoever. So she's ideal. فَرَدَدْنَاهُ إِلَىٰ أُمِّهِ. So they agreed, fine, because the baby's not been eaten for several days now, it could potentially die. Very little choice. Who is this girl? Who is this woman that she speaks of? But taking all matters into consideration, it seemed the most obvious thing to do. So fine, take the child, and obviously we know where you are, and you're not messing with anybody. You're messing with Pharaoh here. So if things stepped out of line with this, so faradadnahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did as he promised, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not break his promises. That was a promise he made to Musa alayhi salam's mother, and he fulfilled it. And he makes many promises to you and I about giving us Jannah, about taking away any pain from us, about giving us success to us, about fulfilling our needs. All these things he makes, that if we supplicate to him, he'll respond. He makes so many promises to us, so he's true to his promise. It's just sometimes we can't see. Okay, فَرَدَدْنَاهُ إِلَىٰ أُمِّهِ كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا, so that her eyes would become cool because she's got her baby back. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ وَلِتَعْلَمَ, and also she knows that أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But the majority of them don't know. Majority of people don't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word is true. That's sad to say that. If they did, then would our lives be the way they are? Yes, of course we make mistakes, and every one of us will make mistakes, no matter how pious he becomes, no matter how knowledgeable he becomes or she becomes. They will make mistakes. Mistakes will always exist. We are a creature that makes error. But sinning, blatantly, fisq, transgressing, these are things which are done by action, not unintentionally. A sin is an act which is unintentional, whereas fisq and transgression and things of this nature, these are thought through and acted through. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَىٰ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. And when he reached his prime and he was perfected in manhood, we gave him wisdom and knowledge. وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. وَدَخَلَ الْمَدِينَةَ عَلَىٰ حِينِ غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا وَوَجَدَ فِيهَا رَجُلَيْنِ يَقْتَتِلَانِ. One day, whilst he wasn't given this full nabuwa, he was walking in the city and he saw these two men fighting, and he didn't really know his own people too well. One was from his own tribe and one was from his enemy's tribe. فَاسْتَغَاثَهُ. So فَاسْتَغَاثَهُ, the one who was from his tribe asked him for help, عَلَى الَّذِي مِنْ عَدُوِهِ, from his enemy. فَوَكَزَهُ. So he punched him. Musa alayhi salam punched him, فَقَضَى عَلَيْهِ, and he died on the spot. I mentioned to you before, Musa alayhi salam was a very strong man. قال هذا من عمل الشيطان. He realized the error that he'd done, and he knew this was a satanic act. إنه عدو مضل مبين. قال رب إني ظلمت نفسي فاغفر لي فغفر له. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look, immediately he made an error, he asked for forgiveness. So we make errors, but we need to ask for forgiveness. People say, I'm not ready for Salah. Oh, Ajib, what? I'm not ready for Hajj. I'm not ready for Umrah. What does that mean, I'm not ready for it? Because they are the things which are going to clean the dirty clothes. They are the things which are going to clean our hearts. They are the things which are going to remove our sins. What does that mean? I'm not ready to stop sinning. Is that what we're trying to say? That I haven't really had my full yet? What kind of a strange statement is that to make? That I want to carry on sinning? That I want to carry on breaking Allah's laws? One person has to really take a reality check at what they're saying. And this is the thing. Sometimes the language we use, we say in such a way that we don't reflect. And this is why it's so important to reflect. So important to ponder, so important to think. إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. قال ربي بما أنعمت علي فلن أكون ظهيرا للمجرمين. O Allah, by which you have bestowed upon me, that I will never ever be a supporter for the sinners. فأصبح في المدينة خائفا. So in the morning he was in the city fearful of his life now. يترقب فإذا الذي, so he was looking about. فإذا الذي استنصره بالأمس, he saw the same person that he helped from before. يستصرخ, shrieking again. قال له موسى إنك لغوي مبين. Obviously at this time he said, oh, so you're the troublemaker. You're the one who got him into that situation, and I've seen now with my own eyes that man isn't doing anything. You're going now and starting fights with everybody. فلما أن أراد أن يبطش بالذي هو عدو لهما قال يا موسى أتريد أن تقتلني كما قتلت نفسا بالأمس. When he was going to go to grab hold of the one who was an enemy for both of them, the other person misunderstood. He said, oh Musa, are you going to do, he was there yesterday because he helped him yesterday. He said, do you intend to kill me like the way you killed that person yesterday? إن تريد إلا أن تكون جبارا في الأرض وما تريد أن تكون من المصلحين. Looks like you want to be this tyrant bully on the earth, and you don't want to be a do-gooder at all. So obviously the other person realized that, hold on, that death that occurred, that murder that occurred whenever it was yesterday, we never knew who it was. We just found a body. It was him, it was Musa, because now this man had said so. So this man went, told the council, told Pharaoh that, it's Musa, your own very own adopted child. It's him who's done this. He's the one who's killed him. So there was a person who had hidden his faith in the council. So he left. رجل من أقصى المدينة يسعى قال يا موسى إن الملأ يأتمرون بك ليقتلوك فاخرج إني لك من الناصحين. Oh Musa, indeed the council has agreed that they're going to take action and kill you. So go, leave. فاخرج إني, leave here. I'm giving you good advice. فخرج منها خائفا يترقب. So he left looking around to make sure nobody was following him. قال رب نجني من القوم الظالمين. Oh Allah, save me from the oppressing people. ولما توجه تلقاء مدين, and then when he went towards Madian, قال عسى ربي أن يهديني سواء السبيل. It may be that my Lord, my Rabb, guides me to a path وَلَمَّا وَرَدَ مَاءَ When he came to the well of Madian, وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةٌ مِّنَ النَّاسِ There was a large group of people there gathered around, feeding, taking water for the animals. وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمْ امْرَأَتَانِ تَذُودَانِ He saw two women further back, keeping away, because obviously all the men had gathered. They felt a bit uncomfortable to be sort of mingling in with the men, so they'd stayed back. Their animals had yet to take water, and the men were casually feeding their animals, casually taking time talking, whereas their animals were still thirsty. So he approached them and spoke to them and he said, قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا Why are you away and why are you letting them take the water? قَالَ They responded, they said, لَا نَسْقِي حَتَّى يُصْدِرَ الرِّعَاء We normally don't give water to our animals until the shepherds have taken theirs. So obviously before he asked the question, because he would have said, well, where's your men folk? Why is it that two women are looking after the animals? So they responded, realizing the sort of questioning face that Musa ﷺ had, and they said, وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ And our father is exceptionally old, clearly by suggesting that we're not married either. But they didn't say that. Look at the haya in these women. They didn't say, oh, we're not married, because Musa ﷺ, well, the way they would have looked at it is that maybe that's coming a bit too forward by saying that, because it might send the wrong message to Musa ﷺ. Obviously, clearly it wouldn't have done, but it's the haya, the nature, and how people are behaving with one another. So they, and clearly they didn't say that, oh, we don't have brothers. So they've not mentioned anything. They only mentioned one man, and that man they mentioned is their father, and they've described him as an exceptionally old man. فَسَقَالَهُمَا So he went, lifted this huge lid off and allowed them to take water. ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى إِلَى الظِّلِّ And then he went away. Why? Because the women would feel uncomfortable that he's around them whilst their animals are fed. So when he did what he needed to do, he lifted that. They stayed where they were. He lifted the lid off the well, and then he went and sat under the shade and let the women go forward and take their animals. فَقَالَ He said, رَبِّ إِنِّي لِمَا أَنزَلْتَ إِلَيَّ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٍ That I need, what you're going to descend upon me, I'm in great need from it, any goodness. So it so happens that the two women went back, and they came back a lot quicker. So the father questions, says, you don't come back as soon as this, what's happened? So they said, look, an amazing tale. Explained Musa al-Islam what he did and whatever. So the father said, well, bring this man to me. I want to meet this man. So obviously again, the father could not go because he was old. So he was left with no choice but to send a daughter. فَجَاءَتْهُ إِحْدَاهُمَا So one of the daughters came back. تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ She was walking very modestly and felt very uncomfortable. قالت And she said, إِنَّ أَبِي يَدْعُوكَ لِيَجْزِيَكَ My father is inviting you in order to recompense you. أَجْرَ مَا سَقَيْتَ لَنَا A reward for what you gave to us in terms of the drink for the animals and everything. And it's described by the Mufassirun that what she would do is she would not walk ahead, because Musa al-Islam would say, don't walk ahead, because then Musa al-Islam is going to be continuously seeing her all the way back to her father's. So he said, I'll walk ahead, and she would carry pebbles in her hand. And when you want me to turn left, just throw a pebble towards the left, and I'll understand, and I'll turn left. And when you want me to turn right, then throw a pebble to the right, and I will turn to the right. And therefore, so communication was, because once you start talking, left here, all right, okay, left here, then right, yeah, just behind the tree, and then we start talking, and then before you know it, the two people are next to each other and whatever. So you can see the haya nature that existed in times gone by, and that's the same type of philosophy that's required now. We saw a similar example in this event with Aisha in Ifka Aisha. So they made it back. And when they made it back, he told them the full story, and he said, look, don't worry, you'll be safe here. So one of them when the father was taking mashwara afterwards, one of the daughters said, قالت إحداهما يا أبتي Oh my dear father, استأجره Why don't we hire him? You've always said we need somebody around the place. You've always said that, you don't want to see your daughters doing this. Well, he's a strong man. إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين First of all, because the best of people you can hire are those who are strong and those who are trustworthy. And he's proved the test already. He's strong because he lifted the lid off the well, which 10 men can't lift off. And he is trustworthy because he came back with, he didn't do anything, he didn't molest or abuse your two daughters. And even when the other daughter went and she was alone, he did this. And not only did this, he did this in the way that I described to you, that he walked ahead. He's a trustworthy man. Plus, he could have asked for something when he fed our animals. He could have said, I'll feed your animals, but I want a goat in return. And we know he has nothing. He doesn't even have a bag. He doesn't have an animal. So these are two traits in him. So, qualities are seen. Good qualities are seen by people. Having good qualities. قال إني أريد أن أنكحك إحدى ابنتي هاتين على أن تأجرني 8 حجج. So the father has an even better proposition. He says, indeed, I intend to give one of my daughters in marriage to you as a mahar, as a condition, then you will give me 8 years of service. Okay. فَإِنْ أَتْمَمْتَ عَشْرًا فَمِنْ عِنْدِكَ. And if you complete 10 years, then that's from you, that's a benefit from you. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أَشُقَّ عَلَيْكَ سَتَجِدُونِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ قَالَ ذَلِكَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. And he agreed. أَيَّمَا الْأَجَلَيْنِ قَضَيْتُ فَلَا أُدْوَانَ عَلَيَّ. Whichever of the 2 times are over, then you will see no enmity between us. وَاللَّهُ عَلَى مَا نَقُولُ وَكِيلٌ. And Allah SWT regarding what you are saying is a witness. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ. So when Musa alayhi salam completed his time, وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ, and he was leaving with his family, آنَسَ مِنْ جَانِبِ طُورِ نَارًا. He saw a fire at the side of Mount Tur. قَالَ لِأَهْلِهِ. This is 10 years later now. He's been married for 10 years. And look how their life goes. So, we sometimes feel that to be religious, we have to achieve great things, massive things. Musa alayhi salam was a help on a farm for 10 years. 10 years. Yusuf alayhi salam spent 7 years in jail. So look how their life is going. So one can't just look and think that, oh, I'm not active enough, I'm not doing enough. Of course you're doing enough. Look at what you're doing and strive in that area. As I said, we don't need to, pull up trees, as the phrase goes. But be consistent and be honest and be forgiving and repent from your sins. These are things which we have to do. Okay, these are things which we have, but we don't need to, become an alim overnight or write a whole book or something or do this or do that. It's the work that's important. قال لأهلهم كثوا إني آنستم نارا لعلي آتيكم منها بخبر أو جذوة من النار لعلكم تصطلون. He says, to his family, so he would have children now, Masha Allah. So he said to his family members, look, wait, stay here, I'm going to go, I've seen a fire. Obviously, he doesn't know whether it's friend or foe. He can't take his wife and his kids there. Plus, he can travel a lot faster when he's alone rather than taking the whole caravan. But likewise, he doesn't know if it's friend or foe. Potentially, they could attack him. At least if his family is safe. And we clearly know that Musa alayhi salam can look after himself. Alhamdulillah. So he said, stay here. I see that there's a fire there. And hopefully, I can bring some news from there. Some direction, because we're looking a bit lost. Or worst case, I can bring back a torch, fire, and we can warm ourselves and maybe camp here. فَلَمَّا أَتَى. So he had one intention, but little did he realize who he was going to speak to when he reached there. فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا. So when he came, نُودِيَ مِنْ شَاطِئِ الْوَادِ الْأَيْمَنِ. We called him from the side of the valley on the right hand side. فِي الْبُقْعَةِ مُبَارَكَةٍ. In a blessed place. مِنَ الشَّجَرَةِ. From a tree. أَيَّا Musa. O Musa. إِنِّي أَنَا اللَّهُ. I am Allah. رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. وأن ألقي عصاك. Cast down your staff. فلما رآها تهتز كأنها جان ولا مدبر ولم يعقب. يا موسى أقبل ولا تخف. Come forward and don't be scared. إنك من الآمنين. You are from those people who are protected. أسلك يدك في جيبك. Place your hand inside your cloak. تخرج بيضاء. You'll take it out bright and white. من غير سوء. With no harm to your hand at all. واضمم إليك جناحك من الرهب فذانك. And then place it back to your side and it'll disappear. فَذَانِكَ بُرْهَانَانِ. These are 2 evidences min Rabb, from your Rabb, ila Fir'aun. You're going to go to Fir'aun. وَمَلَئِهِ. Is this what Musa alayhi salam thought he was going to do? إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمًا فَاسِقِينَ. For they are an oppressive people. So Musa alayhi salam remembered, I have just run away from there 10 odd years ago. I escaped potentially the death penalty. They were hot on my heels. Fir'aun and his army were going to literally catch me. I know. قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي قَتَلْتُ مِنْهُمْ نَفْسًا. I've killed somebody there, Ya Allah. فَأَخَافُ أَن يَقْتُلُونَ. They're going to kill me. It's death penalty for death. وَأَخِي هَارُونَ. And not only that, I have a speech impediment. Okay, I can't speak. I stammer. It's better وَأَخِي هَارُونَ. My brother goes. First of all, he hasn't killed anybody there. And secondly, هُوَ أَفْسَحُ مِنِّي لِسَانًا. He's more eloquent. He can speak better. And at the end of the day, you want me to take a message. You want me to be taken seriously. He's better. فَأَرْسِلْهُ مَعِيَ رِدَا. So let him go with me as a helper. يُصَدِّقُنِي. He can prove, he can confirm that I'm speaking the truth. إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَن يُكَذِّبُونَ. I fear that they will deny me. قَالَ سَنَشُدُّ عَضُدَكَ. We will strengthen your side, بِأَخِيكَ, with your brother. وَنَجْعَلُ لَكُمَا سُلْطَانًا. And we'll give for you a strength. فَلَا يَصِلُونَ إِلَيْكُمَا بِآيَاتِنَا. So they will not reach to you with our verses. Antuma wa manittaba'akuma, you and those who follow you, al-ghalibun, will be successful. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam takes on the task. Question comes up. Here we have Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, a prophet, a chosen one, and he was sent to Fir'aun, the enemy of Allah, the one who claimed to be God, to be raised there. Ajib, isn't it? That a prophet would be raised in the house of a person who claims to be God. Why? There's a number of hikmats, one I'll share with you. Inferiority complex. One of the things that we have now, particularly Muslims in the West, is our inferiority complex because our lack of knowledge of the language, our lack of knowledge of the sciences, our lack of knowledge of the various arguments which exist about atheism. So we can't eloquently put our argument forward. We can't, say what we need to say in such a way that we can address concerns both from within our community and from outside of our community. And that generally comes when we sit in front of somebody who's got lots of qualifications or comes from a background in academia or whatever, and our knees start to shake as we think, I'm a simple Maulvi Sahib. How am I going to debate with this person? How am I going to discuss with this person? And we already lose the fight even before we sat at the table. Now Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was returning as a shepherd, as a farmer. That was his job title, a farmer. He'd spent 10 years, 12 years farming. And that's not to belittle, because na'udhu billah min zalik, we don't belittle Anbiya, because all Anbiya came to look after animals because it was to train them for the task ahead. But the point I'm trying to make is, in the eyes of Fir'aun, this is who is coming. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam would obviously, he would have been given strength, and he would have been given the ability to speak and the confidence to speak. Like we see our scholars having those scholars which Allah has chosen for this work, having the confidence to speak. But for a person to go in front of somebody, he would have to feel comfortable and confident. Musa alayhi salam was a prince in the palace of Fir'aun. And not only was he a prince, and those people now who are old, who are now making the council of Fir'aun, because they had grown now as well, he was the best at it. So he was the best at horse riding. He was the best at chariot racing. He was the best at wrestling. He was the best at sword fighting. He was the best when it came to the sciences. He was the best. He had beaten all these princes. So as soon as he walked in, they did not see the garb that Musa alayhi salam was wearing. They saw the Musa alayhi salatu wasalam of old, who was the prince and who had beaten them. Otherwise, if they had just seen this other Musa, they would have been more emboldened, they would have been more arrogant, they would have been more struck, because they would have looked down upon him. But how can they look down upon Musa alayhi salatu wasalam when he had beaten them hands down at everything when he was a prince? So they had already given up the fight. So the argument then became between him and Fir'aun. So it's very important that when we are in an arena, that in that arena we are also adequately qualified to be able to argue our case and debate. Otherwise we'll always be sort of looked down upon, whether it's the way we speak, whether it's the way we argue, whether it's the way we pose our arguments. These are very important that we understand, so as to, in order to be able to suggest an argument and do so. And this is exactly what Musa alayhi salatu wasalam did in that particular scenario. And I'm conscious of time, and we've just reached nisf, so there's so much more I could share with you, but we don't have the time. I really apologize, but it's it further justifies my objectives, and it further justifies my now Surah Al-Ankabut. Surah Al-Ankabut is about the spider, and you're not really going to find much about it, but really it further substantiates and validates my points to you that, look, there is so much to learn. There is so much to learn, and you honestly do not have, even if you had 5 lifetimes, you do not have enough life to be able to waste. So don't waste your life. Use it productively. Study and get an opportunity. And on that note, let me just finish off and close para 20, so we can then move to the 21st tomorrow, Insha Allah. Inna Allah ya'lamu ma yad'una min dunihi min shay. Indeed, Allah SWT knows best what you supplicate and you call other than Him in items and things and whatever. Yet He is Al-Aziz and Al-Hakim. وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ. And these similitudes and examples and metaphors we give to the people. وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. But they will not be understood except by the alimun, those who know. So know. And if you know, then you can understand. And if you can understand, then you can practice. But if you don't, how can you practice when you don't understand? And how can you understand when you don't know? And the only way you're going to know is to study. So it's a linear thing. Nothing happens randomly, it's linear. خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِالْحَقِّ. Allah SWT has created the heavens and the earth with truth. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Indeed, in that are signs for the believers. And that is where we will stop our 20th Ramadan recital reminder. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Awwalan wa akhira. Asslamalaikum wa rahmatullahi.
ليلة القدر التي نزلت بها آيات تذكرة لذي الألباب. يا صائما للشهر محتسبا له بشراك مغفرة بغير حساب. بشراك مغفرة بغير حساب.